Khamzat Chimaev needs to come out and say what he wants. He needs to make it crystal clear. Now, I do not give Chimaev advice, and you want to know why I haven't given him advice? I thought he had it all figured out. Khamzat Chimaev is the media darling. There is only 3 in the history of our sport. Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, Khamzat Chimaev. Conor McGregor still milking that one. Still squeezing the juice. Ronda Rousey never understood that she had it. She marked out for her own gimmick and thought it was real. I'm not teasing her, but this is what happened. Khamzat Chimaev appears to be more in the Ronda bucket of not knowing and understanding this isn't real just because they're saying it. It's just good for attention, so they keep saying it. He appears to be more in that bucket than he is in the Conor McGregor bucket of understanding of how to utilize it. And I don't really mind. I'm down with Chimaev, and he's a young enough guy. If I got to fill in some cracks for him, great. I'm not afraid to do some lifting over here, and I'll do it for the right guy. He's the right guy. I just didn't know I had to do it. I thought he had this whole thing figured out, and I'm starting to think, no, he doesn't. Which is compelling about him. By the way, it's not an insult. Turns out Chimaev might just be a regular guy. Turns out Chimaev might just be a hungry, hardworking, sacrificing, dream-driven wisher like the rest of us. But it didn't feel that way for a while, guys. I mean, what do we know about Chimaev? Not a lot. Not a lot. He's got an incredible reputation. Brian Stan cut a promo that lives today, and it's out there if you go look for it. And he cut this promo in like 2015. When did Brian leave the company? About 2015? Brian Stan's off. He's a CEO, and he's managing billions of dollars. Do you guys even know what Brian Stan's doing now? Brian Stan is a Fortune 500 leader, but he didn't get that overnight. I'm trying to figure out when he left the company right now. He left the company long enough that he built himself into a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar real estate enterprise. So 2015, is that how long he's been gone? And somewhere before he was gone, it could have been 2 years before. I don't know how long ago he did this. That's the point. That's what makes this piece so valuable and amazing. Brian Stan is on stage. They used to call it a UFC Q&A, and they brought him in. I'm guessing I must have been busy. But they brought him in, and they asked him, hey, is there a fighter out there that we don't know about? And Brian says, yeah, there is. He says, his name's Khamzat Chimaev, I think. He says, I've never met him. I've never even seen him. I've only heard about him. But I've heard about him from so many people. I've had so many killers, including Alexander Gustafsson. Right, think about 2014, guys. Gus was put on the cover of the video game in 13. Right, Gus's opinion matters now. Gus's word matters right now a lot. But imagine how much it mattered then. Brian says, Gus is telling me this is the guy. This guy could win 3 different world titles. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal that it goes back that far. Because perhaps Chimaev is still that guy. Perhaps he isn't Mr. Fancy and Famous. I mean, I see the videos. I see he's wearing fur jackets. I can't afford them. I see videos. He has presidents of countries coming and supporting him. I saw a video. He was taken by private car to a private plane. I saw a video. He now lives in Abu Dhabi, the world's richest country. I mean, I thought he had everything figured out and he didn't really care. And he did an interview a week ago, and it's the first time he ever spoke out. I don't want to say he spoke out against the UFC. That would sound as though he said something bad. He did not. But he spoke up to him. He spoke up to him. He did do that. Yeah. Yeah, he said, hey, I was promised a #1 contendership. I was promised if I win on short notice. See, Kamaru Usman got all the credit for filling in on 8 days and fighting Chimaev. Chimaev also fought a brand new opponent on 8 days. who, by the way, was world champion in the very weight class that he just let. Like, that's the boogeyman in his closet. He's got to go fight him on 8 days and gets no credit for it. So he brought that up. He said, I was told if I do this successfully, here's what I get. Well, I did it successfully. I saved the day. And I didn't get it, and I want it. And I liked that he said that. I liked it a lot. Because it told me that underneath those fur jackets and underneath that new beautiful wife and underneath those world leaders and behind the doors of that private jet sits a dirty, rotten cage fighter, just like me. And I think that we do need reminded of that now and again. There is a rumor on Chimaev that he cannot get to America. There is a rumor on Chimaev that he cannot get anywhere where we currently set up that octagon aside from Fight Island. If that rumor is not true, he needs to make that clear. Step one. Okay, I never give this guy advice because I thought he had it figured out. Now I'm starting to think that we've got a misunderstanding, and that's the same hungry dreamer that Brian Stan talked about over a decade ago. So step one, he needs to clear that up. There's a rule in politics. If your opponent says something about you and you don't answer back that it's true, it doesn't mean it is, but that rule and perception will stand. So if currently he can't get anywhere but Fight Island, we can't fully blame the UFC. If they're going to contest the middleweight title, for example, in Canada, which they did 3 weeks ago, and he can't get to Canada, we can't put it on the UFC. If they're next going to contest the middleweight title in Africa, and he can't get to Africa, we can't blame the UFC. So we do need to have that piece of info. And by the way, if the answer is yes, that's true, which would be a reason Chimaev is trying to keep it to himself, he would see between these two options that he's at a rock and a hard place. So he's thinking, hey, I'm better to not confirm it. Even if a lot of people know it, once I confirm it, it hurts me. You're wrong, Chimaev. I personally will come out and help you. I will personally, if I have that information, put a plan together to get that middleweight title contested in the very arena that they contested the number one contendership for that title. But I can't do that until I have that piece of information. That's got to be step one. Step two, speak up. He's a very good interview. I've done 2 with him. One on ESPN and one privately here. But I had the same sense both times, which was it was an inconvenience. I sensed that both times, and I got out. I had him on the worldwide leader of ESPN, and I took his time away because I thought he wanted it gone. I think he even said something like that. Like, hey, I'm in a hurry. I got to cut weight. Let's get this. I think he said something like that. He definitely gave me that sense. So I'd like to see a deep breath, a little time, something relaxing, cup of coffee, something where I know he's comfortable. He wants to be here for 30, 40 minutes. I want to get a few things out. There's a lot that we don't know about this guy. There's a real mystery there. But that's still a young buck that has a massive draw worldwide, but it's like a magnet in certain parts of the world, who is completely undefeated, recently beat a former champion. Oh, and by the way, was promised a number one contendership. If he wants to speak up and say, I want to cash in on that, or if he wants to speak up and say, to hell with the contendership, it wasn't my understanding. I never understood it had anything to do with the title. I understood it has something to do with Sean Strickland. And that's what I'm showing up for. If that's where he stands, let us know. But the secrecy and the being quiet, there's a place for that. There's a place for that works. But right now, we have our answer. Did that work here? No, it did not work. Not when Izzy is being offered that very title that you're supposedly the number one contender for. Not when Sean Strickland is who the fans currently want. Not when DDP is steering the ship. Not when Paulo Costa and Whitaker are signed and coming up. There's a lot of moving parts there. Do you want to be a guy with a really good record? It's undefeated in that weight class because there's a couple of them. There's not a big difference in the resumes of Bo Nickal and Khamzat Chimaev. There's a massive difference in the placement and the rankings of Bo Nickal and Khamzat Chimaev. And when you have something, whatever it is in this space, if you want it, you got to compete for it every single day. And I don't see Chimaev accurately competing for this. If he wants it, I want to give it to him. But the next move has to be from him.